This is Team 1A from Woodmynd Consulting presenting on Challenge 1 by Speak Out Revolution.
NDAs are widely used but poorly understood in terms of their real-world impact. Working on Challenge 1 presented by Speak Out Revolution gave us the opportunity to move beyond assumptions and produce data-driven evidence that we hope can contribute to a meaningful reform. In addition to this, the judges have asked 3 questions, which we will answer as we go through the presentation. As a solution, we went for 3 parallel approaches: statistical analysis, agentic AI, and frontier model app development. But before I go any further, I want to emphasize that every row of data represents a real person's story. But if we want to affect change, if we want to persuade policymakers, we must take a cold, unemotional view of the statistics, whilst remembering what's at stake. With this in mind, we wanted to identify if there was any correlation between signing an NDA and whether a person would file a report with the police. To do this, we used the chi-squared test for statistical correlation and applied it to those that filed formal reports, informal reports, and the entire cohort. In all cases, there was no statistically significant correlation. We did, however, find there was a correlation between those who signed NDAs and decided to file a formal instead of informal report. And signers of NDAs were more confident about whether they should have filed a police report, likely as they were more familiar with the legal process and therefore would have sought legal advice. These, though, are likely not the answers that campaigners want. However, I will note this is synthetic data and may not represent the real dataset. The size of the dataset is also fairly limited, and any additional data may show a different trend. Employing LLMs and AI will enable campaigners to process more data, identify more trends, and better target their efforts. And to the judges' questions, retaining a statistical method and taking a methodical and mathematical approach ensures that every voice in the data is represented without sensationalizing. It also safeguards against AI hallucinations and provides an independent check. What it lacks, though, is scale, as the skills required are in short supply. And that's why we also used agentic AI and frontier model app development, which Thomas will now talk about.
In order to successfully analyze large sets of information, generally alongside trained statisticians, you need the team capable of delivering a collection of technological solutions to enable them to gather the additional information, to consolidate it, analyze it, and then visualize it for consumers. This requires generally a team leader, an analyst to go through the initial requirements, an architect who can then understand the business information and technological requirements to deliver that, the options that fit within the time, cost, and quality constraints of the customer, as well as then the planning, development, and testing and quality assurance of all of that. Every single one of those individuals has a cost to acquire, organize, and implement, making it very difficult for non-profit organizations or those without large budgets to acquire and successfully build these kind of processes and systems. By looking at and trying to take an industry standard process and use open source, self-hosted large language models organized into agents aligned to those traditional roles, we have set about trying to replicate this process alongside the statistical analysis.
So for this approach, I leveraged one of the frontier models to build an application that was ultimately a website with a database that was able to take all of the data and produce insights for them going forward. And so what I used was Superbase, which is an open source website backend piece of software that has a database with role-based access control directly linked in, and also API endpoints that can then be built out to other applications so that we can then integrate other sources going forward. What on the front end is using Next.js as the front end, and then a locally hosted LLM to actually be able to analyze some of the different case studies and stories. So take a look at what the site itself looks like. Is we have each of the different sectors and regions and comparisons that show the distribution across each of the different types of people, locales. And then what we can also do is take a look at the different statistical significance within the mental health issues, within the sectors, within the types of people, and even the relationships between the people who've reported and their manager. We can take deeper insights into the individual testimonies. What we've done is we've set up an open, anonymous sharing for other people to actually share their stories. The final element is on the front end, we can show people what the different insights is based upon their individual case studies, and the LLM will retain a narrative based upon them all. This is clearly a very important topic, and it's important that the right applications are in place for people to be able to share their stories and for us to be able to collect more data so that we can truly understand what sectors within the country are affected most by NDAs and whom is not able to speak out effectively. And as such, that's why we've done the analysis in the way that we have, and so that it is scalable and that we can understand in the future what the effect is of NDAs in other people.